Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am PANCZASU. Welcome back to Endless Legend, and this is an important video as I am going to discuss the changes that have been implemented in the most recent patch. First and foremost, all of you Mac users can be happy. You can now download Endless Legend and play it because it is officially available on Macintosh. Only 32-bit, but it's still something. Soon enough you will have 64-bit as well. As for Linux users, yeah, your version isn't ready yet, but it will be one day, so there is something, right? Anyway, let's go ahead and dig into the game. There are quite a few changes. One very important change for all of you people who are new to the game, and my videos possibly as well, not necessarily though, is the addition of this little feature, which I'm not going to go into, but I have tested the tutorial myself before release, and I believe that it's actually a really good introduction to newer players who have no effing idea what is going on in Endless Legend. This tutorial should ease it up a bit. It doesn't explain every mechanic, but that in my opinion is a good thing. It doesn't just dump all the information on you, instead it just eases you into the game, which is precisely what it needs to be doing in my eyes. Now, as for the game itself, let's go ahead and go into new game and discuss a couple of new features. As you can see, we still only have 7 factions available in the public release. However, I believe the devs have already confirmed, in fact I'm pretty certain that they have, that the last faction will indeed be added for release. So there is something you can look forward to. It's going to be a pretty awesome faction, and this is going to be the first playthrough that I'll make of the full release version of this game. It will be of the newer faction, because it can be tricky, let's put it this way, but very fun and actually quite relaxing. Now, as for those factions in particular, well, as you can see, now we have some actual animations in, which is a nice touch, isn't it? I like them especially in the game itself. On the main menu section screen, those guys don't do much, but in-game they actually kinda are a little bit more lively, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it's a nice touch. There are plenty of those kind of nice touches in the scanned version, and of course hundreds, and I do mean hundreds, of bug fixes. So again, it's something really nice that you can have a look into. When we go into advanced things, is that implemented yet? Yes, it is! Now we have encounter sequence of normal and advanced, so you can choose to play it like you used to play in the previous version, so you can change your orders every turn in battle phase. Or you can play like you used to in the olden days of Endless Legend when you had even less control. I personally like both styles. I like to have a bit more chaos, but I admit that normal is probably preferable for competitive setting. Now, mob deploy... Actually, no. Those victories were already implemented, weren't they? Yes, they were. So there is nothing new over there. And when you go into advanced settings, it's the same as the things you've seen before, but more things work now. So if you want to mess up with word generation, yep, you can do it quite easily. Also, something very important is that now you can actually type in a seed that you want to use to generate a word, which is a very nice touch. It's something that we knew that was coming, but it's nice to have it here already. Now, what I'm going to do is, instead of sitting in main menu and talking about all the changes, which would be rather boring, I'll load into my current Necrophagus playthrough and talk about the changes while in there. Expect to maybe, possibly, perhaps see a few little glitches and whatnot, because I will load a save file made in the previous version of the game, but it should be mostly compatible, and I just want to show you the biggest changes in the game, which should be easily done within the game itself. So stay tuned and wait for just a little second. That's the wrong button, for crying out loud. Let's try it again. Alright, we are now officially in the game and I can start talking about all the new changes. So first and foremost, something that most of you should be very excited about when we go into the science tree, we can see that there are the last 2 eras finally implemented. As you can see, there is the era 5, and after you reach era 6, those are the final texts that you can grab. This is also when the awesome, amazing level track called Last Era starts playing, when you actually reach era 6. I so love this track. It feels like you're about to fight a final boss in an action game. That's how it feels like. And in game, you can feel the exact same thing once you hear this track, you know, playing in the game itself. It's actually pretty awesome. And some other thing that you may see is that this research screen, even in the earlier eras, doesn't look exactly like it used to. Indeed, it has been revamped completely in many different ways, so things that you see right now are probably not the same as you used to see them before. Many texts have been changed, some of them replaced, some of them removed, some of them matched together. All in all, there are plenty of different changes. And because this is why I'm making this videocast, I'm going to go over them really quickly because it's actually relatively important. So first things first, as you can see, right now in the first era, and all the other eras as well by the way, except for the sixth one, there are only two types of equipment. There are the advanced alloys for weapons, and there are the advanced armor for armor itself. There is no accessory anywhere that you can research. However, if you research advanced armor, you gain access to both armors and accessories as well. Now, some of you may say that I actually broke the NDA by saying that this change will be implemented. Fun fact, I didn't know that at the time. It was a pure guess. So when this change was implemented, when I saw it in the VIP forums, I was like, wow, I predicted the future. Because that was literally one day after I mentioned something along this, but I had no idea. That was hilarious. The video itself was uploaded a day before that, so thankfully I can prove that I didn't break any NDA, but that was hilarious. So yeah, now armors and accessories are locked and with the same tech, but what is also important is that you know, remember how in the past you would gain iron armor and weapons and whatnot even without the technology to make the better ones? Yeah, now it's the same case for the accessories. So when we go into any unit's tab, we can see that of course everything is similar to as it was before, but hey, what's this? Those are accessories. They are made of iron and you can always equip them to your units. And the iron ones always give you the same thing. The rings give you improved vision, and that's about it. They just increase the vision of your unit, and the better tier of rings you use, the better your unit can see. Also, this actually creeps me out. Let's look at different unit. Yeah, you are cuter. There we go. Now, as for the necklaces are, or rather talismans, are in my opinion way more important, and they are actually more useful, and in general I'm going to discuss them a little bit more. As you can see, what they do is they give you improved movement, which increases your movement everywhere. It increases your movement on the map by 2, movement on the battle by 1, and initiative a little bit as well. Now, the important thing is that most of the time you actually don't want to wear it. You may be thinking like, wait, what? Why wouldn't I want to wear this? It increases my battle movement, it's amazing. Do you just mean for specific units? Well, yeah, but I'm talking in general. Don't. Why? It's actually very simple. Let's go into show obsolete so that we can see some older era tags. Necklaces. So this is the one I just showed you, the talisman. It gives you this extra movement and whatnot. Very nice, isn't it? Have a look at this though. It's only half the price, but what it does it give you? It gives you +1 battle movement, +1 movement, and +3 initiative. So the only difference there is, it gives one less movement on the map itself, which in all seriousness and honesty isn't even all that important. So if you want to save this little bit of extra industry, and most of the time you should want to save it up, just get the cheapest necklace because it gives you the most important thing ever, which is extra battle movement, which I value far more than regular movement. It also gives you the exact same bonus to initiative, so again, I'm not entirely sure why you would want to go for a better tier necklace, unless you really want to move your army fast across the map. There are some cases when you want to do this, but they are very few and far between. As for all other equipment, it has been repurposed in many different ways, so it works different, the stats are different. When we look at, I need a different unit to showcase this to you. Rambler, oh, I hate him, but I think he should do the trick. Does he have a sword? No, he's got a mace, doesn't it? It should do the trick though. No, I need a sword. That's annoying. Anybody? Oh wait! I saw something similar. What was it? That was Graves. That was no, that's not what I'm looking for. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that weapons. Now, some of them, not all of them, but some of them give you a percentage-based bonus to your otherwise regular stat increasements, which is actually fairly nice. But I cannot find anything like this. I remember that the swords certainly do it. Looks like I cannot find anything else, but it looks like, oh, this shield actually does the same thing. Both shields do. That's interesting change. Yeah, I may be sometimes slightly confused as to the changes because they are constantly being reworked. And in particular, when it comes to equipment and the unit balance, you should always remember, until the gold release and probably even after that, balance is going to be subject to change. Especially now there are still a few things that we really need to iron out. So keep in mind that all the stats, while nice to look at and remember, they will be changed. Possibly or even most likely. So don't value those numbers too much, don't value the percentage sign too much, it can all be changed. What is more important is the raw idea and concept. Now, I know that I was supposed to talk a bit more about technologies, but we'll come back into that in a second. We are on the screen already, and there's something you may have already noticed. Critical is gone, now it's replaced by damage. The battle system has been completely reworked for this version, and currently it is very different. Basically, the stats that you are given are mostly the same. You have attack and defense, but critical is replaced with damage. Attack no longer dictates the amount of damage you deal, it dictates the probability that you will actually hit and how well you will hit. Now, I'm not going to explain the system in detail because it is mildly complicated, nothing you can't get your head around, but it works. It is far easier to explain on paper and especially with some spreadsheets, which is something we did a lot on the forums. So, I'm not going to go too deep into the system, but just explain the basics. So the basics are very simple. When a unit attacks another unit, the attack and defense are compared, a dice is rolled, and depending on the result, you either get a hit, in which case you deal full damage, you get a partial hit, in which case you deal reduced damage, you get a miss, in which case you deal absolutely no damage whatsoever, or you could get a critical chance, strike rather, in which case you deal extra damage. Of course, as you can guess, the probability of getting a critical chance increases when your attack increases in comparison to the enemy defense, and the likelihood of you missing the enemy increases when your attack is lower than the enemy's defense. It's actually fairly simple to understand once you get your head around it. And damage, of course, is where you can base off your assumed damage from. So this is how much damage you can deal. Initiative works the same, life works the same, speed works the same, it's just attack, defense and damage that have been reworked. And of course, again, remember that attack and defense can be modified by various different buffs, by attitude difference on heals and whatnot, by force, all the stuff also applies to this. So I'll show you the differences in battle and the new UI in battle in more detail once I actually play this playthrough, this Necrophage playthrough, later on, perhaps even today, but most likely tomorrow, depending on my upload schedule. Either way, the new battle system is really cool, I love it a lot. Still needs some tweaking, it takes too long to kill a unit currently in all the builds that I have tested so far. Sometimes you can just bash your army against a single unit and it will not effing die, but again, it will be resolved in the future. Now let's go back into the science screen because I didn't finish talking about the changes. Another change, as you can see, Era 1 gives you access to Mercenary Market, which is actually a technology merged with the Rookery, which means that that after you research this technology you gain instant access to both heroes and units, and I have no idea how I have access to heroes right now. My assumption is that I gained it because I have gotten the Imperial Coinage, but it's not actually supposed to work like this. Oh, I know why it is. I think that before this patch, in this playthrough, I have actually researched the Rookery myself. So this is not supposed to be like this. I'm not supposed to have access to heroes right now in this current patch. What is, however, supposed to happen is that once you research this technology, my apologies, you are supposed to gain access to both heroes and mercenaries. So mercenaries are available from Era 1, and you would be wise to hire them because they are usually a cheaper and a more powerful alternative to your base unit. It is again something that may change in the future, but from what I can gather, devs do want to keep the mercenaries useful from the day one, which in my eyes is a pretty good idea because I haven't seen enough of them in the older versions of the game. Now they're actually commonly used, perhaps even a bit too much, but again, things will be resolved in the future, so there isn't much you need to worry about. Another change, very important, since we are already on the marketplace screen, is that when we try to buy something, you can only buy maximum of 10 stacks of any given item. Same thing applies when you want to sell something. This is actually a fairly cunning and nifty feature, which prevents you from abusing the marketplace by buying a small amount of resource to increase its price and then selling a big amount of the same resource for profit. Now you cannot do this because you can only buy and sell in limited amounts, which is a fairly nifty feature. It is a bit annoying when you want to buy a really large quantities of items, like let's say 100 glass steel, which sometimes can happen in endgame. But at the same time, it is very fair and it prevents people from abusing the marketplace. And from all the testing I have done, it is mostly foolproof. So yeah, good going there, Amplitude, good going. So there's that. Let's go back into research, shall we? So other things that have been changed. Ooh, let's make sure I do not miss anything. Right, some technologies, as I mentioned, have been nerfed or removed. So for example, as you can see right now, there we go, Imperial Highways give you access to both watchtowers and right-of-way, which is a pretty good idea. In the past, watchtowers and right-of-way, while not entirely useless, they were not as worthy of their cost as the other technologies in the same era. Now you're much more likely to go for Imperial Highways, because you gain access to both of those technologies. Watchtowers are mostly useful for quests, because many minor faction quests require you to build a watchtower, which is a cheap structure to make. It does give you some extra scattered range and health regen, which is not too useful, but somewhat useful, and you can sometimes get a really nice piece of technology by completing the watchtowers. The right-of-way usually pays off quite well in both Dust and Science, especially if you're planning to play as a non-warmonger, which is not something I usually do, but I have tried it myself, so I know what I say when I say that right-of-way is a pretty good improvement to make, so Imperial Highways in general are nowadays a pretty good upgrade to go for. When it comes to other things, well, as I said, things have been moved, things have been changed. In general, you have to see them for yourself, but this is the general idea and principle behind the recent changes to the tech tree. It was made a bit more interesting, more accessible, and more logical as well. Now, also, as you can see, it now takes only 9 technologies to reach into the next era, so it is a little bit faster to reach into later eras, which should allow you to actually reach into era 6 in more of your games than in the past. I mean, you never were able to reach to the era 6, I guess, but trust me when I say this, that in the older non-public versions, it was pretty effing impossible to get into era 6, when you had to research 10 technologies before advancing to the next era. With 9, it is doable, it is certainly doable, and I like the current pacing of the technologies. Now, another thing is that the stockpiles have also been moved and they have all been matched together. So when you research the stockpile technology, then you get access to all 3 types of stockpile: food, industry and science, but you can only start making those in the 3rd era. Before that, that is not something that you can actually do. And so on and so forth. As I said, there are other changes to the technology screen, and of course there are new technologies in era 5, and most importantly era 6. All technologies within era 6 are not improvements, they are just empire-wide bonuses. So once you get it, and immediately you gain the bonuses of it, and it can be quite game-changing and game-breaking, but that is the point of era 6. Once you get one of those technologies, you are in endgame and the game is about to end. It's supposed to end even. So depending what kind of victory type you want to go for, you may want to go for different things. Although in general, if you can, going for difference engine is probably the best idea, because it will allow you to get other technologies from era 6 much faster than you would otherwise expect to be able to get them. Because those technologies, they cost way more than you would otherwise expect when comparing the difference in price between technologies from era 4 and 5, for example. These are extraordinarily expensive, and to get any of them, you will need several, and I do mean several, or maybe even dozens of turns to get. Unless you rush for difference engine, then it gets much more manageable, which I would encourage you to do most of the time. Alright, technologies I have discussed more or less to the extent that I feel satisfied with. I have discussed the changes to items and the unit capacities. Winter, another thing. Unfortunately, I do not currently have a save file with winter in it, but I don't think it would work too well either way, because you need to see this in-game. So I'm just going to quickly and briefly discuss what happens in winter nowadays. It's actually very simple. Each winter, aside from the very first winter, I mean, each winter you gain some kind of a different effect that goes in, that happens. For example, hi there. For example, second winter you can have, it's randomized, but let's say that second winter you have, aside from all the penalties you gain in winter, like less food on towns, less dust on towns, less vision and whatnot, additionally you get some kind of extra penalty, like minus 25% dust in all of your cities. and those penalties stay for all the subsequent winters. And each winter there's another penalty added. So every winter you get, the further you are in the game, the winter is going to be harsher and harsher and harsher, harder to survive, and in general more punishing. It is going to be longer, and it's going to be more devastating to your economy than you could otherwise imagine. Some things are not particularly troublesome, like less health regen on your units. Some things can be absolutely decimating, like less industry on tiles or your cities. Even the most powerful empires can fall during winter, and I really like the new winter mechanic. It is truly a time that you fear, and it puts much more emphasis on looking at the winter screen than ever before. Because you need to know if you can conquer an enemy empire before winter starts, because chances are that during winter you will not have the means to continue your war effort. Your units will die, your cities will starve, and you'll desperately try to survive. There are of course other numerous changes that were implemented with this current patch, but in general I think I have summarized the most important ones for you, and I'll go into more detail about those changes in my current Necrophagous playthrough, which hopefully will work. There are some issues when you try to play a save file from older patch in the current patch. I'm not sure if it is 100% game breaking or if I can continue. I'll keep you posted on the status of my current playthrough. But if I can continue it, then of course I'll go into more detail about the current changes. Until then, it was PANCZASU, also known as the Mighty Mix Spammer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you online.